If someone missed my video about the first season, then a hint has been made for you in the upper right corner. Tokugawa decides to hold a tournament where the greatest fighters from all over the world will come to compete for the title of the strongest, and for a belt worth tens of millions of yen. A total of 32 main participants and 4 alternates gathered. The fighters will be divided into 4 blocks, and the winners of their groups will meet in the semifinals. Baki decides to invite Koja to this tournament. His first opponent will be Reagan, a wrestler with tremendous strength, because of which he constantly had to restrain himself during his fights. But Baki easily overpowered him. After the victory, Koja congratulates him and asks why he is doing this, because in her opinion, they just cripple each other. To which Baki replies that every man at least once wanted to become the strongest, and many give up this dream after a while, but Baki, even if it's stupid, wants to achieve his goal no matter what. The next fight in the first block will be between the kickboxing champion and the most charismatic Japanese wrestler Iguri Kanji. Iguri began to make a show out of the fight so that the audience would hold him. And after a couple of throws, he wins. In the meantime, Katsumi Orochi, Dappo's adopted son, will perform in the second block. He is called the ideal karateka who brought karate to perfection. When he was only 5 years old, he performed in the circus, where he was noticed by Dappo. After one of the performances, a lion broke free and destroyed his father, but the 5-year-old Katsumi was able to pacify him. After which, Dappo decides to adopt the boy in order to raise and train him as his own son. The fighter who was supposed to fight Kato in the first round didn't enter the ring. Therefore, one of the 4 reserve participants will oppose him, namely the son of Yashizaru, who came here to find and avenge Yujiro for his destroyed father. Since the power between them was too great, it was up to Katsumi to fight the monster. At first, he cuts it with ease, and then they are going to completely destroy it. But the monster was saved by Baki, who attacked Orochi. They were about to fight, but Kato stopped them, saying that if they win their fights, they can sort out their relationship in the final. The next to fight is Hanayama, who will defend the honor of the street fighters. Baki wanted to greet and support him, but the mafia boss replied that they were at war, and Hanayama would confront all fighters who practice martial arts. His opponent will be Ineji, a representative of Japanese martial arts. He was able to strike Hanayama and even blocked his attack, but it turned out to be so strong that it damaged his leg through the block. And when he tried to take Hanayama's hand in a painful grip, he injured his spine. After defeating him, Ineji's trainer decides to fight him to protect the honor of martial arts. But instead of fighting, Hanayama decides to test his opponent and try to help him come to his senses. The next fight will be between Roland Gustav and Katsumi Orochi. Roland sees through his opponents and is able to damage any joint, which is exactly what he did with Orochi's right arm. But with one movement, he set it back, which means that Roland's main weapon against him is useless. Even though Roland tried to use the same move against Orochi that Baki had done against Kosho in the first season, the difference in strength was too great, causing Orochi to simply beat him up. Of course, Yujiro could not miss such an event, but by agreement with Tokugawa, he was forbidden to fight, so he came just to watch the fights. Yujiro recommends that Tokugawa add another fighter, Amanai, whose strength lies in love. Knowing what an opponent wants, he also understands what that opponent least wants and what kind of punches he can't expect. Meanwhile, in the third block, Silva, the master of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Jack Hammer, the Canadian beat fighter, will fight. Before the fight, Jack meets Koju. He says that her boyfriend is Bucky, a beautiful young man. But when Bucky himself comes to them, he immediately gets into a fighting stance, preparing to fight. But Jack was not going to fight him, but only said that he wanted to see him in the final of the tournament. Bucky himself was surprised at exactly how he reacted to Jack. It turns out that he is afraid of him. During the fight, it was revealed that the power difference between Jack and Silva was so big that Jack won it with just one punch. Some will think that Jack achieved such strength through training alone, but in fact, doping played a big role in his success. Jack was a bad guy. However, he spent 12 hours in the hall, boxing a pair. At the same time, he did not take breaks to eat or go to the toilet, but even such training did not give him the desired body, and then he turned to science. A scientist who once saw how Yujiro easily destroyed a polar bear wanted to create a drug that could turn a person into the same monster as Yujiro. But the problem is that his experiments were unsuccessful, and there was a risk that his drug would not be compatible for humans. However, this did not stop Jack, and he began to take doping diluted 10 times. With his help, he easily broke all records, but this was not enough for him. He told the scientist to give him the undiluted version, even though it might destroy him. That is why he was nicknamed the man who abandoned the future. And because the scientist created the monster, he decides to destroy himself. Before each fight, Jack takes doping, which each time reduces his years of life. After defeating Silva, Yujiro himself decides to fight Jack. But Baki intervenes, saying that Jack has no right to fight Yujiro. The father slaps Baki to get out of the way, but even then Jack refuses to fight him. He whispered something in his ear and left. This caused great joy in Yujiro, and he said that Jack had the same right to fight him as Baki. But why they are equal, we will find out a little later. Meanwhile, fights take place in the fourth block. Amanai, who got here on the recommendation of Yujiro, and wrestler Miyamoto will face each other. Amanai began to float in the air and attack his opponent with his feet. A man whose strength lies in love attacks his opponent with incredible force, so much so that the fight had to be stopped by the judges. They will be followed by Doppo and Chicago bouncer Richard Filth. Both fighters came out in suits. And even though Richard attacked very hard, Doppo still knows karate, and therefore he was able to carry such a blow with his fingers, from which Richard lost consciousness. But after the victory, Doppo helps his opponent come to his senses, and thanks for the fight. The next fighter is an old man who is fluent in Aikido. Many of the fighters had no idea what he was doing here. After all, compared to the rest, he looks like a child. But in the very first fight, in which the 3-meter wrestler acted as his opponent, he showed what he was capable of, while at the same time straining in no way. Then, in the second block, Katsumi and Hanayama will meet, who seized the initiative from the very beginning and could finish the fight very quickly. But he did not finish off his opponent, but waited until he got to his feet. This happened more than once, because of which Katsumi was still able to recover and begin to adequately answer Hanayama. He used his solar plexus to push off and kick. Such a blow is very heavy in execution, which once again shows his skill. He then throws 4 punches at the center line, but at that moment Hanayama catches his leg and damages his joints. However, Katsumi bandaged his leg and continued the fight. Hanayama almost won, but the support of the rest of the fighters gave Katsumi such motivation, after which he decided to deliver his signature supersonic strike. Katsumi had to strike a decisive blow, and Hanayama decided to take it with his back, on which was a tattoo dedicated to the man who saved his family. Let Katsumi win, but 2 people carried him out of the ring, and he told his father that Hanayama could knock him out 3 times. The next to enter the ring are Jack and Misaki Kengo, who owns the traditional Shaolin Kempo. He began to wear Jack up to 20 beats per second, but at some point his hand flowed. The master again began to strike with his feet, but again after that his limb flowed. They decided to stop the fight and search Jack, because it seemed to everyone that he carried something forbidden by the rules, but Jack had nothing with him. Misaki bandaged his wounds and continued the fight, even though he began to feel dizzy and was about to pass out. As it turned out, Jack inflicted these wounds on him with his teeth. He bit the master so that his hand was injured. After that, Jack knocked out the opponent without any problems and went to the next stage. From such a performance, Koju began to worry a lot about Baki. She begged him to quit this tournament, to which Baki took her to his mother's grave. He told her the story of her departure from life, adding that because of this, he must by all means become stronger than his father, and take revenge on him for the destruction of his mother. That is why he wants to win this tournament so badly. Doppo and Amanai enter the ring, who, like in his first fight, begins to hover over his opponent. But Doppo was ready for this, and therefore began to attack his opponent. Even though it seemed that Doppo had to win, neither his son nor the other onlookers could imagine him as a winner. Amanai, after many blows, as if on autopilot, began to attack Doppo, and moreover, very successfully. He held him a grip, during which he injured his knee. But even after that, Doppo got up and was going to continue the fight. Not wanting to destroy his opponent, Amanai began to beg first Doppo and then Tokugawa to recognize him as the winner. Because otherwise, he will be forced to destroy Doppo. To convince him, Doppo was about to strike him in the eyes, but he did not have time to do this, because Yujiro attacked Amanai. He considered him a pathetic weakling due to the fact that he did not want to destroy a person. Since Yujiro ruined the fight, he decided to redeem himself with a small show. He asked Tokugawa to bring out all the fighters who made it to the next stage against him. But instead of them came the losers. They were unable to oppose him, and Yujiro defeated his opponents in their own style. He defeated the boxing champion according to the rules of boxing. The same was with the sumo wrestler and other losers. When only Kureha was left against Yujiro, Kosho decides to intercede for him, and the remaining fighters intercede for Kosho. Yujiro decides to destroy everyone, but a bullet flies into him. He is caught in a net and put to sleep with a sedative dart, a dose that would be enough to put the whale to sleep. And they decided to make Dappo the winner in a pair of Dappo and Amanai, because the judges considered the last blow to the eyes to be decisive, even if because of Yujiro he could not make it. After this performance, Kosho and Guki should fight. Since during the fight with his brother, Kosho held back, he could not show all his techniques, and therefore decided to demonstrate them on the old man. At the cost of an injured arm, Kosho carries Guk such a blow, from which the thin bone behind the eye, the fundus, was damaged. But it turns out that this particular eye of Guki was not real, because the old man was still able to defeat Kosho and go to the next stage. In the first round, Baki fights Iguri, who before the fight pitifully begs him to give up the victory, because winning this tournament is his dream. But Baki said he had exactly the same goal, so he would fight with all his might. During the fight, Iguri began throwing punches that Baki couldn't even feel. But it turned out to be a bluff, and when Baki thought he had already won, Iguri stabbed him in the lower body. He acted dirty throughout the fight, and at some point, he even called his mistress to the arena, who dressed exactly like Bucky's mom. He knew it wasn't her, but he still lost concentration, which Iguri took advantage of. When he took Bucky in his signature move, Bucky got out of him calmly. Because there's a huge difference in stretch between a wrestler and a fighter like Bucky, so a hold that is considered incredible in wrestling is just a warm-up for Bucky. And with a throw over him, Bucky wins. After the duel, Iguri comes to him. He thanks Bucky because in 20 years of his career, this was his best fight, which he really enjoyed. The next fight will be between Katsumi and Kyo Retsu, a kung fu master. Only the strongest bear the name Kyo. At one time, Retsu was considered a bad student due to his short temper. Once, during a fight, he destroyed a student, but he did not feel any guilt. And although at that time Kyo did not want to transfer this name to Retsu, he had to do this, because Retsu was recommended by such a person who could not be refused. During their fight, Katsumi got into his perfect stance. Although it is not considered a real art from the world of karate, Retsu stated that the level at which karate is now was achieved by kung fu 2,000 years ago. And he proved it with just one non-contact punch. The difference in strength between them was too big, so Kyo easily passed on. Guki and Dappo then enter the ring. In this battle of masters, Guki is ultimately victorious, although during the fight, Guki truly felt fear for the first time. He was afraid of Dappo with all his heart, and therefore, after the victory, he expressed his respect to him. But as Guki was heading towards the stands, Dappo told his opponent to land the finishing blow. But Guki's respect is more than hatred, and therefore did not finish off his rival. And after Dappo lost to Guki, and his son lost to Kyo, Dappo decides to close his karate school, because if he is not able to become the strongest, then he cannot train others for this either. At this point, Yujiro comes to his senses and heads towards Retsu. He teases the kung fu master and advises him not to look down on Bucky as he is from the Hanma family. When it's Baki and Retsu's turn to fight, it turns out that Baki has already fought him thousands of times before the fight. He did this by imagining punches to Retsu. This is called shadowboxing. And thus, after watching all of Retsu's fights, Baki memorized all of his moves, and thus was able to fight him mentally. That's why Bucky got all those injuries. But only these battles did not end with anything. Neither Baki nor the Shadow were able to win, and all because Retsu had not yet shown all that he was capable of. Kyo delivered a blow to Bucky that sent him flying through the ring. But at the same time, Bake did not receive much damage, and therefore asked Kyo not to hold back, and show everything that a kung fu master can do. Retsu delivered heavy blows to Baki, causing him to temporarily lose consciousness. But it turned out that with severe injuries, in which there is a threat to life, the power of Hanma wakes up in Bak. He gets into Yujiro's stance and catches the opponent in a grapple. He twists his neck, and then delivers a decisive blow. Bucky won, but there was complete silence in the arena because no one expected this turn of events. But fortunately for Retsu, he received nothing but a bruise. After the fight, Yujiro comes to Baki and scolds him for taking pity and not destroying his opponent. In the second semifinal there will be a fight between Guki and Jack. But before the start of the leg, the masters could not hold him back, as if refusing to enter the arena. Realizing that most likely now will be the most difficult fight of his life, Guki comes to the exit to the arena, where the fight begins. But instead of fighting normally, Jack once again just tries to bite his opponent. He first bites through his ankle and then bites into his arm, to which Guki responds with a throw. Then he gets on his knees and prepares to defend himself. The whole strength of the master lies in the fact that he turns the opponent's blow against himself, and the stronger the opponent attacks, the stronger will be the response of the master. But this technique has a weakness if the opponent does not attack, the master will have nothing to answer him with. This is used by Jack, and once again bites Cookie, after which he finishes off the old man with his foot. After the fight, Correa comes to Jack. He said that because of the doping, Jack's body begins to break down, and if he does not give up the final, he risks ending the fight with his own life, because his body can only withstand one fight. But Jack doesn't care, so he just walks away. Thus, Bucky and Jack are in the final. Before the fight, Yujiro and Jack agree that if Jack wins this tournament, then he can fight Yujiro. When the fighters enter the ring, it turns out that Hanma is Jack's real last name, which means he and Bucky are half-brothers. That is why Yujiro then stated that Jack has the same right to fight Yujiro. Before the fight, instead of experiencing some kind of hatred, they, on the contrary, show mutual respect. This fight will be between half-brothers whose father ruined their mother's lives, causing them both to make it their life's goal to surpass Yujiro. They began to fight at incredible speeds, sweat and tears flying all over the arena. But it turned out that this fight with the fastest blows was just a warm-up, and only now Jack and Bucky will start to fight at full strength. Like a lion, Jack attacks Bucky, trying to bite him. But when a fighter opens his mouth, then his jaw becomes the most vulnerable place, so Bucky was able to seize the initiative. But when he grabs him in the same hold that he once held against his father, Jack has a surge of strength and he easily pushes Bucky back, after which, with tears in his eyes, he says that he simply cannot give Bucky the victory, because that Yujiro made his mother suffer. Then he starts violently attacking Bucky. But Bucky has the same motivation, and he also understands how Jack feels. He hits Jack hard. Bucky is about to throw his brother over him, but Jack holds onto the board with his teeth and then starts attacking Bucky with his bites. And when he finally manages to bite him, it turns out that with his bite he hit the artery, and before losing consciousness, and maybe destroying Bucky, there are about 3 minutes left. Despite this, he continues to fight. True, Jack's blows are stronger and he knocks him down. Jack tried to finish off his brother, but Bucky counterattacked and made a grab. But when he once again tried to bite him, Bucky damaged his ophthalmic nerve with Kosho's technique. He performed supersonic strikes, which he spied on Katsumi. Also damages his arm with Iguri's move. Then Bucky has about 100 seconds left, but then Jack's body starts to break. However, according to him, this is only better, and this form is perfect. In this form, he was going to fight Yujiro. Jack delivers a punch that damages Bucky's arm. After that, he begins to attack him with incredible strength, and all that remains for Bucky is to endure the blows of his older brother. Jack stabbed Bucky one after another until he noticed Bucky's back turned into a devil, the same one that is also on Yujiro's back. Bucky counterattacks, saying that now he will throw the last move, after which Bucky will definitely fall, and if Jack remains standing when Bucky holds him, then the victory will go to him. Bucky grabs Jack and starts his move, and even though he resisted to the end, the body cannot stand this and Jack passes out, which means Bucky's victory in this fight and in the tournament itself. Tokugawa brings a belt worth tens of millions of yen, but Bucky does not have the strength to lift it, so the awakened Jack helps him in this, congratulating his brother and helping to lift the belt. After the defeat, Jack goes to Yujiro, but he begins to humiliate him for daring to come to him after playing Bucky. However, Jack still attacks his father, for which Yujiro attacks and almost destroys him, but he spares him. The tournament is over and Bucky wins. He thought that was the end of it, but he still wanted to fight.